Now to Mark Regev, Senior Advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister, former Israeli Ambassador to the UK. Mark, welcome to the programme. Lots to actually get through. Let's start with the situation at the Al-Shifa hospital. What are you going to do to help those babies there?
So we bought fuel, especially for the babies, for the incubators, because obviously no one wants to see these babies in any way come into harm. We've also said we will approve, of course, their departure to another hospital in ambulances, and that can be facilitated too. But I'm not sure that Hamas is interested in any of these solutions. They want pictures. They want pictures to show a crisis, so there'll be pressure on Israel to cease our operation. That's their game plan.
You blame Hamas, but you'll know that the 300 litres of fuel that you've delivered, what the doctors are saying, that would last for half an hour, 1 hour. The UN have been saying for weeks now that this would be the consequences of fuel being cut off. But that image that has gone round the world, it is absolutely harrowing. I'm putting it on the screen now, of babies just swaddled, not in incubators. It is absolutely harrowing. You can talk about military operations, you can talk about objectives, but that is the reality on the ground, isn't it? And you have to take responsibility for what you are doing as well, don't you?
Well, let's be clear. Who has turned the hospital into a war zone? Hamas, who have deliberately built their military infrastructure under the hospital, a network of tunnels that connects from their headquarters under the hospital, a network of tunnels that goes for mile after mile and includes rocket launching sites, their arms depots, their fortresses, their underground fortresses. This is Hamas's military machine that they have deliberately built under a hospital. Now, we're not targeting the hospital. We're trying to do our best to safeguard everyone in it. But if anyone is held responsible for any harm that comes to those children, it is Hamas who have, against all the laws of armed conflict, used those babies to shield its military machine.
Sure, but you have to take responsibility for what you're doing. Let me just read a quote, because it expressly references what you're talking about. It's from the UN's humanitarian chief, Volker Turk, who last week said any use by Palestinian armed groups of civilians and civilian objects to shield themselves from attacks is a contravention of the laws of war. But such conduct by Palestinian armed groups does not absolve Israel of its obligation to ensure that civilians are spared, that the principles of distinction, precautions in attack and proportionality are respected. Failure to do so is also a contravention of laws of war. So those areas, distinction, precautions, proportionality, they are all being questioned in terms of what you are responsible for.
But they shouldn't be, because I would argue that Israel has been very strong in observing all the laws of war. We've been urging people to leave the area of combat now for over 3 weeks, and actually literally hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in the northern Gaza Strip have voted with their feet and relocated to the south.
Sure, and you know that many can't as well.
No, but when you say they can't, is it because Hamas is preventing them to do so? How is it that just in the last few days, when Hamas's power in the north has been challenged by the presence of Israeli combat troops, suddenly we've got 150,000 people over the last 3 days who have also left? Was someone preventing them from leaving up until now?
You've seen those pictures, though, of the injured in the hospital and all of those people taking shelter. Now, you said on Sky News 6 or 7 hours ago, and you repeated it just now, about providing ambulances potentially to take and transport those babies. As I say, you said that 6 or 7 hours ago. Where has that plan got to?
Well, it's a proposal that we've put on the table to the hospital, and it's the same as the fuel that we've supplied to the hospital. Hamas is preventing humanitarian solutions. This must be understood. Hamas deliberately wants those pictures. They want the humanitarian crisis. Those babies are dying, so Hamas can protect its military machine. They are avoiding all practical solutions to solve the problem.
You've said that Hamas control and have centres and command posts underneath those hospitals. You were also saying that you're not directly targeting hospitals. How can both things be true? Because we know that you're firing and concentrating around the hospitals. If those command posts are underneath the hospitals, how can it be true that you're not directly targeting them?
We're doing our best in a very difficult surgical combat situation to be as surgical as is humanly possible. But we don't target hospitals. We don't target patients in hospitals. We don't target medical crews. But what is the problem? If you talk about Al-Shifa, the director of the hospital is a Hamas-appointed bureaucrat. And as a Hamas-appointed person, who is his first loyalty to? And so when we are coming with practical solutions to try to solve the issue of these children, of these babies on incubators, everything we proposed is thrown out the window. They don't take the fuel that was offered for their generators. They don't support the movement of the babies out in ambulances. So, of course, they're stuck there because they want those terrible photographs. Hamas wants those babies to die to save its military machine. That's what I see.
You've constantly said that Hamas have these control and command centres underneath the hospitals. Will you actually publish the evidence for the outside world to see, to back up those claims?
So, number one, it's not just Israel knows. I think all the population of Gaza City knows about Hamas's subterranean terror network. It's not a secret if it's a secret.
But underneath the hospitals, command and control centres, you are asking people to take that at face value in terms of what you're saying.
First of all, it's a fact, and the Gazans know them themselves. And all those people in the hospital who deny knowledge of any of this, of course, are telling you what Hamas wants you to hear because they control the message. Anyone who speaks out of turn in Gaza, it's not a democracy.
So it's not a problem then, you publicising that evidence, though, is it? If you're saying everyone knows it, it's not a problem then, is it?
When this is over and we have IDF crews on the ground and we can let cameras in, then I think you'll see 100% that everything we've been saying is true. Just as our soldiers have advanced, we've shown pictures of rockets in mosques and arms depots next to children's schools. We've shown all this. All this can't be shown by while Hamas is in control because they forbid you to take pictures of such things.
Well, presumably you've got intelligence. Let me ask you, we're short of time, so let me rattle through 2 or 3 quick final points. You would agree, would you, or disagree when Antony Blinken says too many Palestinians have been killed in this conflict since October the 7th?
100% agree. And it's because, unfortunately, Hamas has adopted a deliberate strategy of using Gaza's civilians as a human shield for its terror war machine.
Yeah.
That's the fact. It's not just Israel says so. The American government has said so. The British government, the European Union. Hamas is willing to fight to the last Gazan civilian, sacrificing them on the altar of its crazy, extreme agenda.
And in terms of the overall military mission, we're 5 weeks, we're into the 6th week now. I know you can't go into great detail, but what rough percentage of your objectives have you achieved? Is it 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%? Where are you with where you are with your plan?
We've made good progress because we're now in the center of Gaza City, which is the epicenter of Hamas's command and control of their terror machine. And so we're making good progress, but this won't be done until it's completed. And when it is over, we will have destroyed Hamas's military machine and ended their political control over the Gaza Strip. That'll be good for Israel. That'll protect our people. We won't have to live in fear of these terrorists crossing the frontier and butchering our children in the middle of the night. But I hesitate to say it's also good for the people of Gaza, who will be rid of this government, this terrorist government that doesn't give a hoot for the people of Gaza. It's been ruling for 16 years. What have they brought the people of Gaza? Misery, bloodshed and impoverishment. The people of Gaza
quick final
also
thought
deserve
then.
better.
Israel refused and rebuffed President Biden's request for a 3-day humanitarian pause to get aid in, to get hostages out potentially. You want both to happen, so why wouldn't you have said yes to that?
First of all, we have agreed to humanitarian pauses. We've done a whole series of humanitarian pauses. And
3 days, that's what President Biden asked for.
We've been doing humanitarian pauses. We've been coordinating with the Americans. And we've been doing that. We did it
I'm simply asking you why not the 3 days that the American president asked for.
We are coordinating with the Americans. We're doing what needs to be done to facilitate the mass influx of aid to the people of Gaza. We've established a humanitarian zone in the southwest. Out of the fighting, we've suggested that people relocate, to that safe zone. We do not see the people of Gaza as our enemy. Our enemy are the brutal Hamas terrorists who butchered our people and butchered their own people. When they're gone, it'll be better for everyone.
Mark Regev, thanks for joining us live here on BBC News. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.